on, Foxy. It's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Chris Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Blerdkast Live, and I am your host, Mark, and today we have a very special episode. Matter of fact, something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and we have a full panel of guests on today. But before we begin, if you haven't, please leave a like on this video and go ahead and subscribe to Blerdkast and Moana Nui Podcast so you can get more nerdy content like this and other things from other cons and conventions that we all cover. But let's go ahead and jump in. I would like to welcome my guests for this evening. Everybody here is either a press outlet or they are a director of media relations for a particular con. More on that in a second. And I'll go ahead and start with the young lady to my, what direction is this? Other direction. I'll start with you.
I guess you're talking to me. Hello,
Yes.
everyone. I am Dana, best known as the other half of the Moana Nui Podcast. But you typically see me on the con scene with various different hats. I am the director of media relations for MomoCon. I work in media relations with DragonCon. And then I do a different hat for Ranger Stop and Pop, Ranger Stop Orlando, and the list goes on. And then I will go ahead and hand it over to the gentleman to the right of the screen, Mr. Dunn.
I'm Chris Dunn. I am from the YouTube channel Geek, Dunn, Ryte, and I have also been a videographer for Ranger Stop and Pop for about the last 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, I don't wear as many hats as Dana, but you know, I do my thing.
All right. Let's go to the next row. Let's start with Ty. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Mike? Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Ty. I also go by Blaque N Culture on the internet. I do a lot of things, but in the press world, I run the very small press outlet, B&K on Tour. And I also work with another press outlet, Off Black Magazine. Doing it for a while, and I'm very pleased to be with some of these esteemed folks around me.
Awesome. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm Chris Carthern, CEO of Cutting Edge Animation. I've been operating Shots by Shinobi media site since 2017, and occasionally I am a host for Cosplay Alliance.
Perfect. Tillman.
Hey, I'm Tillman Smoot, the interview manager at DragonCon in Atlanta. I used to own and operate Target Audience magazine before that. And now I focus solely on the other side of things. So that's pretty much my job.
Okay. Miss Joy.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joy Stevens. I am a member of the Moana Nui Podcast. You can find me on Vistery. Sometimes I pop up just to aggravate people on the Moana Nui Sports Show, as well as the monthly Moana Nui After Dark, What You Watching. This is my first year being a part of the press corps for DragonCon. And by day, I'm also a public speaker, master facilitator for corporate spaces. And I am currently working on a TED Talk that hopefully I will get approved for sometime in 2026.
Awesome. I hope you get approved for that. Furious, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Furious. I am also a member of the Moana Nui Podcast Network. I co-host the sports show. I am on the What You Watching show. And I have been pressed for DragonCon for 2 years now. And I kind of just go wherever if Dana says, hey, I need you here, that's just kind of where I go. That's pretty much it. My day job, since we're talking about day jobs, is I work in IT as a solutions architect, and that's it. I'm just a nerd and geek of all trades.
Perfect. I got so many funny stories to tell during this show. And again, I am Mark. I am the host of Blerdkast, the show you're currently watching, and owner of Blerdography, a small press outlet YouTube channel where I go out and explore the Black culture of nerdiness and different conventions and things like that, including cosplay, celebrity interviews, guest interviews, and so many other things to come. This has been an episode or a topic that's so close to my heart because covering cons as press has been something that shaped my channel since I've been doing it, and the opportunities and experiences that I have gained, the knowledge that I have gained since then has been incomparable to anything else that I've done. And I just wanted to get together an elite force of panelists and talk about how to do press, what it is that we do as press outlets, and some of the do's and don'ts, and just how to get started for anyone who might be interested. So I want to start off the discussion topic with, what is press? What is it that we do? Why do cons reach out to us, or why do we apply to cons and want to cover these events as press? I want to start with one of the press outlets. So let's go, Ty. Let's start with you.
So press for me is kind of, at least my approach to press is, I approach the conventions from kind of giving you a bird's eye view, but also a holistic approach to what you can expect as an attendee. A lot of times press outlets, when we're talking about very, very large press outlets here, like comic book or, like those kinds of folks, they come for it for like the hits and, the views, kind of like what's happening, what are all the big people saying out there. And that's a very important part of the job as well. You want to cover what's coming out. That's a part of the job. But how I approach things is I really want to get down on the ground and kind of show people what it's like to be there. A lot of the times people, when they're coming in contact with my content, it's the first time they've ever heard about the nerd sphere at all, or they have a very generic understanding of what it is to be in a part of nerd and otaku culture. So my goal is always to approach a convention. Either A, I'm introducing you what it's like on the ground, what kind of experience you can expect to have, showcase all the genuine like critiques I have for cons because I want them to improve and get better. Or the other side is I'm showcasing what it looks like for someone like me, someone who is different points of marginalization. I'm a fat Black woman. So what kind of like, what is my experience? And also showcasing that I, as a nerd, do these different things. Like I've gone to different kind of like subculture events. So showcasing that we are there, we're present in so many different aspects. And I find that my particular approach to press is unique to me. Everybody has a different approach to press and what they're trying to show to what communities. So for me, that's my particular approach. That's just for my outlet. When I work for others, for Off Black, my goal is kind of similar, but from there, I'm really just going in and really being detailed about what are you paying for? I don't know if that, like, sometimes that can be taboo, but like these conventions are like hundreds of dollars, and that's just the ticket itself. Like, what are you paying for? What is the point of, getting dressed up in your cosplay and spending all this time? So that's kind of like always going to be my approach is, what are you paying for? What are you getting out of the experience? How is it going to feel like when you walk onto that con floor? And that's what I'm there to capture, really.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I actually came across you on, I believe, Instagram because I can't remember what video it was, but that was before you started doing press. So I wanted to know, or you was doing press, but you weren't doing so many cons. But so I want to ask you right quick, how has your content changed since you've been doing more conventions as press?
Man, I'm glad that you brought that up. So when I started, I always tell people I started off making content in general as a blogger. I never intended to do any of this. I genuinely fell into this process. And that's kind of all the things that you love, right? You never intend that this is going to be your life. But I was already very steeped in the culture. My uncle was actually guest relations for a local con in my city. So he already kind of had an in. He was like, you know what, you really like doing this. You're like going to cons. You might as well, like, here, let me throw you an interview. And he was the first one who kind of threw me in there, just plane, and he allowed me to sit in with a interview with John Young Bosch. And that was like, I was like nerve wracked. I was like, oh my God, this is like Ichigo. Oh my God. But I feel like he constantly like pushed me in my very early days. Shout out to you, Uncle V. I love you very much. But he constantly threw me into these rooms. And of course, shout out to my local con, Anime Festival of Orlando. They were the ones to give me my opportunity, because when you get started off in the press, no one wants you in their con. They say they need X amount of years, which valid, because knowing what I know now, but it was really difficult to get in. But having that experience with Anime Festival Orlando, my uncle, getting those interviews, getting those sit downs, it helped to refine my professionalism. I don't really get those like jitteries that people talk about. Oh my God, I met so-and-so. That doesn't really happen for me. I really do see these people as people now. So I'm allowed to have like a more refined way when I approach people. And I think that's also like my content, how it's really shaped. I think I started off as a fanatic and a fan, which I love that. I'm still a fanatic and a fan if these books and movies don't say anything about it. But I think now I approach it as like, I'm a fan who's really about the work. I know what it takes to do. I know what it takes behind the scenes, and not just as from a press look, but from the look of the people that I'm interviewing and I'm interacting with. I know what it's like to be a voice actor because I've seen the work. I know what it's like to be in the comic book industry, partly because I'm a part of it, but because I've seen the work. So there's an amount of respect there. So I'm really going to like get the scoop and really introduce people to these professions, because sometimes people don't see it that way. So that's like my kind of growth, coming from like this fan kind of giddy place to now like, oh, I'm a professional. Like people always tell me when they see me at cons, like I'm not really a talker. Like I'm like, girl, I have places to be and people to see, and like truthfully, I do not have time to wait. Please throw me a granola bar and a bottle of water and let's keep it pushing.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Ms. Dana, I would like to ask you, what is press from the perspective of a director of media relations?
For the perspective for a convention, what we define as media and press is the media side, because press isn't the traditional press anymore. It used to be press was defined as newspaper, television, radio. But with streaming and content creation and so much more, it's broadened that scope of media and press. So for a lot of conventions, they're competing against other conventions, but at the same time, even as big as conventions as MomoCon and DragonCon, I still hear about people like, oh, I've never heard of them, but they're nerds. But it takes, because of a lot of content creators, streamers, podcasters that are getting a lot of the, people getting their foot in the door, or they came across you because, oh my gosh, it's another Black geek, or this is another a woman that's a geek. I want to tune into her content, and they learn about these conventions through there. And that's very powerful for a lot of conventions, because we want to get in front of a lot of people to see what we're about and see what the experience is like through these outlets, and then go ahead and come to our convention, check it out. And then, a lot of these people end up becoming fans, that they are repeat attendees because they enjoyed themselves, just because they got introduced to the convention because they watched Blerdkast, or they saw something on Cosplay by Shinobi's social media. It's one of those that just takes somebody coming across you on their For You page, or just already following you, to get introduced to these conventions. And that is more powerful than purchasing ads in a lot of newspapers and things like that.
Okay. Anything you like to add, Tillman?
Sorry about that. I kind of have an interesting perspective on things because of how I started and where I ended up at. When I was working when I owned Target Audience magazine, I had purchased it, and it was heavily involved in basically live event coverage, concert photography around Atlanta. It was very specific to that. and I wanted to kind of broaden that a little bit and bring in interviews as opposed to just photos. Sorry. So I began approaching different musicians that I would be covering and asking for interviews, and somehow or another, I ended up getting approval for a few of them. And once I tapped into that aspect, I became obsessed with it. I didn't care about covering the event anymore. I wanted to know more about the person that was putting on the event. And that led me to DragonCon. I ended up covering DragonCon, and my obsession with doing a good interview kind of ended up with me getting my current position, which is, it's funny, I no longer do interviews because I'm too busy supervising everybody else's. But the way I look at it is I am privileged enough to be in the room of private panels at conventions, basically, where the questions are generally, hopefully, a lot better than the ones that the everyday con goer is going to ask during a Battlestar Galactica panel or whatever. But usually, the questions are much more insightful, and it's an entertaining position. But for me, my position at the convention is very, I don't know how to put it. It's very specific. I focus, while media relations at DragonCon primarily is focused on making sure that we help the reporters and the media and the content creators get their content. My specific job is to facilitate the discussions between the guests and the media. So I always end up having to basically come down on the side of the guest. So it puts me in an interesting position. I mean, I see both sides of things, but in the end, I am always going to be siding with DragonCon and the guest over any kind of issues whatsoever. It's my job to make sure that everybody leaves my room happy. That includes the reporters. That includes the guests. That includes me. So yeah, and when I work at MomoCon with Dana, I also help out in the interviews there as well. But yeah, that's just kind of my primary focus. I love listening to discussions, intelligent discussions. I love asking questions that maybe somebody hasn't ever thought to ask somebody before. And I really enjoy it when I hear a reporter do that. When they hit a question that I'm like, yes, that's a good question. It makes my day. It really does. So that to me is what press is.
I saw a question come up. Someone asking in the live chat, what is your favorite part of doing press? And I kind of agree with you. My favorite part of doing press is when the person I'm interviewing says, "Oh, that's a good question," or "I've never thought of that before. I've never heard that question before," or they like geek out with you in their answer. That kind of does it for me. But we're going to get more into that a little bit later. Another question I saw: how for the outlets, this question is for all of the outlets. How did you get started doing press? What was your first con covering as a press outlet?
Okay, I'll go. My first con doing press was MCM London Comic Con. And I was a blogger for We Buy Black at the time. And I was trying to do some Blur stuff. This was in 2017, but it kind of really wasn't as popular as it was right now. So they kind of didn't understand it at the time. So I started my own blogging site, Shots by Shinobi at the time, to kind of go that route. And I submitted. I found out you could do press at conventions. I was already a photographer. I would normally attend as a photographer. in capture cosplayers, and I got my chance. I basically spent that first time interviewing tons of cosplayers, highlighting cosplayers, figuring out how they made their costume, how long it took for them, why is the character important to them, just geeking out over different fandoms, and never turned back. I probably did the next 12 MCMs. The next year I did DragonCon 2018 for the first time, and been doing it ever since. And I feel like getting into it, I think is easy to me. I think maintaining it, actually staying professional is the hard part, making sure you're actually doing the work, because you can go to cons and it's a lot of fun and you can easily get lost, but it's making sure you actually get the work done and actually posting your content, posting your blogs, your interviews and everything like that afterwards.
Right. You bring up an interesting point about the professionalism thing, but I'm gonna get to that in a little bit too. Joy, Furious, would you like to add your 2 cents into that?
Furious, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go.
I slipped backwards into being with press from my relationship with Dana. I've known Dana for years now. I used to work at the company that she still works at, but she asked me if it started with me cosplaying a few years back at DragonCon, and she's like, "Can I get some pictures for my outlet?" And I was like, "Sure." Next thing I know, and I've mentioned this before on some of these shows, like I was cosplaying as Rogue from X-Men, and then I saw this picture show up in I think it was the New York Times, like they did a piece on it, and I was like, "Oh my God," like I was geeking out. And then, like, you know, Dana and I stayed in touch because I didn't know she was into nerdy stuff, and she didn't know I was into it either. So we were both like, "Hey, you know, like the Spider-Man thing." And she asked me if I would be interested in helping out with MomoCon as an interviewer. And I was like, "Yeah," because I like to ask questions. So I mentioned some of the stuff that I do by day, but I've also had several like talk show format podcasts, even in the early days of like iHeartRadio, et cetera, like 3 Degrees show with some folks I can't name now because they're famous, and Thoughts and Moments Radio, Steel Sharp and Steel political podcast. So I like asking questions, and I like people to go, to your point, "Oh, that's a good question." And so I got that experience this past year at MomoCon, being on press at DragonCon, and hopefully doing a little bit of stuff at AWA in December, and then I'm off and running. I'm just planning to ask questions for the rest of my life.
And for me, it's somewhat similar story to Joy's. I've known Dana for years and would be at conventions. And one year she asked me if I could help out at MomoCon, and I was like, "Yep, let's do it." For me, the interesting thing about it is I started going to DragonCon back in like 1998. And that was because the person who was the art director at the time, he and I worked together at my day job. So had he not asked me to come help out at registration for DragonCon back in the late 90s, I don't know that I ever would have run into Dana currently to be doing press for to help with Moana Nui, because prior to DragonCon, I'd never been to a con, didn't really have any interest in going. And somebody just said, "Hey, can you come help us at registration?" And I've been kind of in there since 98, 99, and they just can't get rid of me.
Gotcha.
Danny, you never get rid of us. Never.
Yeah.
Mr. Dunn, I know you have a very unique perspective from what you do at cons, because not only do you do press like for MomoCon, but you literally are Mr. Ranger Stop and Pop. I know you're retired, but you will never live that down. You were the videographer for Ranger Stop and Pop Atlanta for several years, and that's where I met you. And oh my God, one of the best relationships I ever had in the last couple of years. The person I've met, seeing you work that convention, literally you're everywhere at once, and like also like nowhere like to be found when people are looking for you. But like your work is amazing. Your edits, how you shoot, how you approach a convention, it's inspiring. So I kind of want to know, just me personally, what is your personal experience like being the guy for the con versus being just a press outlet like when you're at MomoCon?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting having those two perspectives, because like I actually started off as press for Ranger Stop and Pop. That's kind of how I got into it, and then like I did, I just felt so much gratitude for having that shot, that opportunity, and it was such a unique opportunity that I just created a thank you video that was actually used as promotion for the next year of the convention. This was back in 2021, and then I was asked to be videographer, and there was originally like a few videographers, but then turned out that I became the one. Um, the One of the things that I think is interesting is that working with different staff members and things like that, I've kind of learned a little bit more of the inner workings of a con, and things that can tend to annoy staff members and volunteers quite a bit. Um, and a few more like do's and don'ts that may not necessarily be written, things written and unwritten. But it was being videographer for Ranger Stop and Pop that I met Dana, and I got to experience the wonder of Dana. And I had mentioned that I had mentioned to her that my family was actually planning on starting to go to MomoCon, and she was like, "Oh, well, you need to apply for press." And so I did, and continued on doing that there. So like for a while I was having a little bit of duality there, even expanding press for MomoCon to even my wife and son, who have started their own YouTube channel, and they had the opportunity to be press this year for the first time, which was really, really cool and really fun to do. But yeah, the work is definitely different. I feel like for me personally, press is a little more relaxed than being videographer for the con, because of the fact that you're having to be everywhere and to capture everything. I mean, when your directive is, when you ask, "Oh, what's the most important thing to get?" and then the feedback is everything. You really do have to be everywhere at all times, and you kind of get frustrated when you miss these like really cool moments because of everywhere that you have to be. Whereas with press, I can pick and choose and do things according to like what's really interesting to me, or what I think some of my subscribers may want to see, or things like that. It's a lot more like laid back and chill approach.
Now, I've seen you in action, and it's a marvel. Like, you make one man shooting look like an art form. So I commend you for the work that you've done and everything that you've been able to do. We're going to get into some more of the specifics of like the things that you've done in a little bit. But before we move on to the next topic, I do want to share my little story, how I got into press. I'm not going to name drop anybody, but I went to a convention, Winterfest, presented to you by MomoCon, and I happened to just shoot a little vlog of the Black perspective of going to a convention in Atlanta, focused on Black cosplayers, the Black attendees, and just the overall Black experience. And someone from some convention saw it and reached out to someone else who got in touch with me and was like, "Hey, you should really apply for MomoCon." And, at the time, I think I had like maybe 100, 200 subscribers, no view count to really speak of. And I was like, I'll never get approved for MomoCon because my numbers aren't there. I don't have a following. But the person was very persistent. It's like, "Hey, you should apply for MomoCon. Press applications are open. You should apply for MomoCon today." And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to do it. Weeks went by. Every time me and this person talked, they were being persistent. So finally I did it, and I was approved. And my first interview was Phil Lamar. So I've not looked back ever since. Every con I go to now, I try to cover it as press. The like some of you said, like you learn a lot about the inner workings of how cons work and how to conduct yourself professionally within the nerd space. Which, trust me, I learned from experience. That is very hard. Like, how do you not geek out with the Power Rangers? They're the Power Rangers, and that's your favorite thing. How do you not like sit there and geek out with them? You gotta either find a way or just be professional. But let's move on to the next topic, and I'm sure this is something that everybody's watching wants to get into: how to really do press, how to get started in doing press. We all talked about how we did it. Now let's talk about how to actually do it. If you are a small outlet, if you are someone who has only but a few hundred followers or subscribers, or you're a big outlet and this is something you want to get into, let's talk about the bells and whistles of what it takes to really do what it is that we do. And I would like to start with our directors, our con directors. And the first question I would like to ask you guys is, I know you have to vet the outlets that apply for convention, that apply for MomoCon and DragonCon respectively. What is it that you look for when vetting outlets?
Well, for me, for MomoCon, we're a family-centered convention. So we're making sure like the content is appropriate for any ages, or you have you have something on your content saying, hey, this is for 16 plus, that, that way it can distinguish your content. But the biggest part is making sure you're consistent. That is a huge thing for me, is if you're only posting something once every 6 months, you're probably not going to be a good fit for us. Also, is your content centered in the stuff that our convention is about? Animation, anime, comics, gaming. Are you covering any of those things? Cosplay. If you're not, then we need to see that in order for us to even give you consideration. Because for me, I don't look at numbers. I look at consistency in your content. Now, there are other conventions that do look at numbers, and that is a deciding factor for them. But that is not all conventions. And so I don't want people to be discouraged thinking all conventions are like that. And Tillman, I'll let you give you your feedback.
I pretty much will echo almost everything you just said. I will say that I personally do not approve who gets into DragonCon. That is not my job. That's my boss's job, Samantha, and she's very good at it. But I do know what she uses as her litmus tests for everybody, and pretty much what Dana just said is exactly what she uses. It's not necessarily about your numbers. It's about your quality and your quantity and your regularity, and whether or not you are providing something unique to the space. Just to, as an example, Mark, I'm going to call you out.
Okay.
When I met you at MomoCon a couple years ago, I was immediately taken by you because, I mean, look at me. I'm not a blerd. I'm the exact opposite of a blerd. I mean, I had never even heard the term until I met you. And I realized at that moment that DragonCon sorely needed that voice. It needed it very badly. And so I talked to Samantha about it, and we have really, really, really tried to give everybody a chance. If as long as you are interested in what we are interested in, I want to hear what you have to say about it, or I want to hear. I just want to see representation, I guess, from everybody, because it's we all love this stuff. We really do. We love the same actors. We love the same shows, the same stories. the same costumes, everything. So why wouldn't I want to hear everybody's take on it? But so when Samantha does her first pass, she hands it off to me, and my job at that point is basically to see which of the outlets is qualified to do interviews with the top tier celebrities, basically, like the movie stars, the TV actors, the voice actors, those people. And everybody is entitled to ask for interviews from artists and authors and comic book artists and industry professionals. We don't limit that, but we do have guidelines when it comes to who can take up the time of our Walk of Fame guests, because they are the ones that are interested in the numbers, not me. I will go to the mat for somebody if I know that they will come away with a good interview. So for me, when I get the list of people that she's approved, I then basically do a deep dive into their website. And the very first two things I search for are the word interview and the word DragonCon. So I want to see if they've covered DragonCon in the past, and I want to see if they've actually done interviews. If their site is solely focused on cosplay photography or content creation around costumes or things like that, well, they're not really interested in doing interviews. So I'm not really. I mean, I'm going to give them a pass. They're still, of course, invited to apply for interviews for cosplayers and whatnot. And you would be surprised how few of the people that I approve actually do apply for interviews. I think that a lot of people don't think they'd get approved. But for me, it's just, you have to have regularity, I think, is the thing. For me, I can't just go to your website and see that your last post was in February of 2023 and approve you for DragonCon, because you're obviously not serious about it. So that I take my position and what I do in the room that I represent very, very professionally. As a few of you probably already know, I'm very, very, very much, I want to be a professional outlet kind of thing. When people come in, they see me in a suit. I don't cosplay while I'm working. And you'll see me at my table, but I'm always listening. I listen to every word that goes on in that room. So I'm always attentive, and I'm always making notes on my computer about who's doing what and whether or not they did something great. I try not to record the terrible things, but unless it's really bad. But so yeah, it's just for DragonCon, because we are of a very big scale. MomoCon is huge, as near DragonCon numbers, but DragonCon is DragonCon, and that's a very big mechanism, and I take my piece of it very seriously. But I love you guys as the media, because I used to be one of you, and it tickles me to see the media come in and just get a grin on their face because they get to meet somebody and they have a good interview with them, and they just walk away with that memory. And then I get to see the content a couple weeks later, and it's perfect, and I love it. It's just, so yeah. I'm sorry, I probably rambled on a lot about that. But.
No, that was fine. A lot of stuff I want to touch on, but first I do want to ask the outlets. We all started somewhere. But now that we have started and we are in our routine of covering conventions, what is your prep like? What is your process of approaching a con like? How do you plan and try to work out who you're going to interview? Because different cons operate their media differently. MomoCon's media experience is completely and utterly unlike any other con versus, say, DragonCon or Ranger Stop and Pop or AWA, which I'm going to get into AWA also since Victor couldn't be here. But for any of the outlets, I want to start with the Chris's. What is your approach to covering a con as a press outlet?
My approach, like I said, different cons operate differently. Let's say I'm going to DreamCon or MomoCon. They have kind of similar. They operate a little bit similarly in the fact that they reach out to you. They have a schedule of, this is the press schedule that you can go to interview the talent. So you can look up, okay, these are the people I want to interview. You can prep your questions. You can prep all those things so you know exactly the time that you're going to be doing those interviews. And you know you're going to be in a room with the kind of like a round robin type interviews. And I really like that format because it's always formal. It's always generally goes smoothly because the talent is used to press interviews in that way. So I think it's easy to prepare for those. And say it's always nice when you ask that question. You can tell that they haven't gotten that question before, and they and they're kind of excited to answer that question. But also, some of the other cons a little bit more difficult, right? Or to get interviews. I have had let's say, I don't want to call it a name, but met a celebrity and asked for an interview, and we talked, and they were very friendly. But they're like, oh, but I'm only looking at mega number outlets at this time, which understandable. So you may get hit with that. But there are some people that say, oh, it doesn't matter how small you are. They're kind of interested in your voice because your voice is different. And then a lot of different people. Sometimes a lot of the major outlets talk about the same exact things. So that's also one of the unique things I try to do is just come from my perspective, not trying to cover the main topics that everyone else is going to consider.
Mr. Dunn, anything to add? Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like checking out. The first thing I do is I look at the rules for the con initially, as far as in terms of press, because there's always like minute changes. Even if you've covered a con previously, there's always something different in some way, shape, or form. And then in terms of interviews, kind of coming up with a list of must do's versus nice to do's, and prepare myself for any sort of flexibility in that space. Prepare as if I'm going to be able to get those interviews in, but also pivot and have the flexibility. Typically, when I'm covering a con, though, like I kind of want to cover what it's like to be there. So like if you've never been to the con before, you kind of get a little bit of a taste of that from my perspective. And so I'm kind of looking at like what's different this year, what's new, what's interesting to me. And then as it gets closer to the con, I can kind of get that feel so that when I get there, I know pretty well where I want to go, and I can talk to those people about like when's a good time to come back and talk to them about whatever they're about.
Perfect. For Moana Nui, for Joy, Dana, and Furious, I have a question for you because I've seen you guys work. When y'all prep for a con, because y'all are more of a team base and y'all divide and conquer, do all y'all get together and figure out who y'all want to interview and come up with questions, or is it just like Dana kind of doing that and then she's assigning y'all what to go do? Like how do y'all operate?
Well, I usually, as Joy and Furious will probably echo, is I have a group chat for my correspondence, and once I get an approval for a convention, I'm like, all right, who's going? Get who's going, and then of course all right, for example, for DragonCon, I'm like, okay, for DragonCon, we need to send our top 10 big guests for this application. Who are your options? And everybody will send theirs, and I will pick their top from their top 3 or top 2, depending on how many are trying submitting stuff. And that way we can make sure someone from everybody's list is submitted. And then once we know who's approved, and I'm like, all right, who's covering this interview? And then we got to go from there. But I try to make sure I don't want to be the one that is just like telling them what to do. I want them to also have their voice of what they're interested in covering. But I will let them know like my like to haves, like, okay, I'd like to get some interviews from cosplayers on the floor or things like that. And then someone can volunteer if they want to do that.
Okay.
Just to add on to what Dana was saying is like, yes, the group, the correspondence group chat was on fire for DragonCon. Like, oh, please, if you can get me this, I would love you forever. I'll wash your car. Like, whatever we needed to do.
I wasn't even in that group chat, but I was aware of the group chat.
I was big of the stuff. But in addition to that, so yeah, once Dana had outlined, okay, these are the folks covering these people, then it was on us from a professionalism standpoint, know who you're interviewing, know what they're working on, know what they got coming up, know what things that they don't want to talk about and respect that. And then also recognize, what sort, because me, like I said, I like the talk show type of vibe. So I'm asking human questions, like about, mental health, wellness. How do you balance this? What made you not give up? Like those sort of things. Because I also think, aside from what's the new hot, movie or song or whatever you're working on, is like, how did you persevere? So I like asking those kind of questions. And I said, like everybody else said, I love it when I see somebody go, "Ooh, I like that," and then they answer. It makes me happy to know that they had, because they do this all the time, and that they have someone that asked them something interesting. So yeah, but we do a lot of research and preparation. Then we talk to each other because sometimes we have ideas for better questions based off what we've said to each other too. So
I'm so happy you said that because I've got specifically with you, I got to work with you at DragonCon in a couple of interviews, and having your gift of the Queen's English and my just being excited and in the moment, like collab and like work together was like so amazing. And I think we came up with some really fun, interesting content there. And then I got to work with Furious and James at like MomoCon before. They've been in the audience while we're doing our round robin interviews, and like, oh my God, James, I know you're watching. You get intense when you ask some of your questions, depending on who some of the guests are. Fears, you do too. But I love seeing you guys work. It's just like seeing that passion once you can kind of let loose and be a little unprofessional, be more nerdy with the interviewee, and everyone's having fun. I think those make for really great interviews. I didn't want to leave out Ty. Ty, do you have anything to add about getting started as a press outlet?
I actually have so much to say.
Go for it.
I want to start off by saying I mostly work alone. I do have a small team that comes with me to cons. I love them, but I mostly work alone. And I want to be honest and say that when I was first started doing conventions, hell, even now, I get really overwhelmed at cons. Like it is unbelievably overwhelmed. I typically, before I go to conventions, I have a group chat, I have a Google Doc, I have all the, God, if you name it, I promise you, I plan for these conventions like I am planning for my funeral. I swear I do. I get to that convention, I grab my press pass, I walk out on the floor, I'm like, what the hell? Where am I at? Well, how did that shocked Pikachu face every single time? I never can get, I can never get it together. I'm
with you right there. Me and you right there.
I feel like the best thing I can say is one thing I've learned is I really did have to overhaul the way that I did. A lot of specifically Dana and Tillman, you guys brought up something that was very important to me, was consistency. When when you're starting these conventions, it was really hard for me to be consistent because conventions have very short time frames. A lot of conventions they want they either want 30-day or 60-day turnaround. And for me, when I first got started, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to cons. I can do the content." I was going to all these cons and I really couldn't do the turnaround because I was so exhausted. I was doing cons back to back to back. I couldn't get the turnaround. It makes you look unprofessional. I'm telling you this as somebody. Hey, ain't no shame in my game. I got denied from MomoCon because I wasn't consistent. Baby girl had a lot on her plate. She had to really reorganize the way that she was doing conventions. Remember that if this is not your day job, this is a privilege. Point, period, and blank.
Yeah.
You have really got to prioritize what you are doing. I love doing press genuinely because this is my passion. I get a lot of gratitude out of it. And like, I like seeing people when they look at my content and they see me doing these things, like it's really gratifying. But like from a professional standpoint, I've had to genuinely overhaul the way I prep for cons. So now my first thing is I come up with a checklist of the 10 things that I'm going to complete no matter what for a con. So for my checklist, it's for me, I like to do at least 1 or 2 floor interviews. I like to get on the floor. I like to ask people how's their experience. Sometimes at my experience, getting interviews can be very 50-50. Some cons are very good about getting you interviews or even at least trying. Some cons, they'll be like, yeah, I got you an interview. And they'll never tell you. And, and you'll just, the email was sent in vain. At least that's from my perspective. I know it's different on the other side, but I'm just letting you know, being honest. So for me, I don't necessarily aim for big interviews. What I try to do is I read those rules. I see if you can walk up to someone at their booth. Always be respectful, of course, but can you walk up to people at their booth? Can you talk to artists in the alley? How to cosplayers? I always try to get 2 interviews. That's my goal. I'm not a big, I love interviews, but I'm not a big interview girly because they're hard to do. Tillman is right. It's very difficult to stop and slow down and ask people really poignant questions. The next thing that's on my prep list is I want to make sure I'm hitting the right, for me, panels are everything. No one wants to sit in a panel for some reason. I am a panel girly. I like to sit and listen what these fans sat in, for 6 to whatever months to prep for this con. I like to go in, especially if it's an interesting panel or a panel that talks about something with representation. My goal is to go in there and to capture that information. So that's number 2, making sure I hit all the proper panels. Number 3 for me is always make sure I have all of my equipment. Even though I say that, I always miss something, but to check my equipment, make sure I have clear lenses. God, a clear lens. If you have a dirty lens, I shoot mostly on a phone. I have a DSLR and I still shoot on my phone because I don't know, for whatever reason, I got sticky fingers. And then the rest of my checklist is just making sure that I'm hitting the content that resonates with me and my audience. I'm not necessarily somebody who's a big outlet, so I don't necessarily have to worry about who's doing what and what new anime dropped. Honestly, that stuff doesn't interest me anyway. I'm going to cons because I like to see people collecting plushies. I like to see furries. I like to see cute girls dressing Lolita. I like to see, Black people doing things that we didn't necessarily, people of all different creeds, that's not necessarily something that we've ever even thought to see ourselves in. I want to see that. So after overhauling the way I do conventions and approach conventions, the opportunities I've had have completely shifted. Also pacing myself. I don't necessarily do a convention once a month. That's too much for baby girl. She got a day job. I try to do conventions maybe once every couple of months. I try to do a convention a quarter at least, maybe even. And also I've started adding in smaller events. My local events be popping. I have night markets, maid cafes, other events in my local area that need coverage. I have gaming stores that need coverage. That's also press as well. That's a part of what I feel is my job too. I need to be covering what's in my local community, not just like my big conventions. So I would say the biggest thing for each press outlet when you're first getting started is prioritize what genuinely is important to you. If you want to be someone who goes to DragonCon and MomoCon, I just went to Anime NYC, New York Comic Con, Level Up, that's fine. You can do those things. I want you to do those things. When I went, I had a ball. So I want you to do those things. But also, I would encourage you to genuinely, I don't know, there's something so important about doing a small convention, about a small event. I just did a pop-up for Decora. Anyone know about Decora fashion? Probably a lot of people didn't, but I got to learn that day. I went and I covered my local event, and that video, the connection it made with my audience was something unprecedented for me. So I feel like that's the most important thing, is really prioritizing what's important for you to capture and pace yourself, because what's the point of signing up conventions if you can't write an article and do your footage for it anyway? And, that's what, honestly, that's a whole different conversation. But that's why a lot of conventions are being so strict these days, is because so many people get their badges and they don't do the work. And they don't get denied. And it makes it really hard for small outlets like me that don't have big numbers to get in. So if you're going to do the conventions, especially big ones, do the work, pace yourself, and, be consistent in other ways, like doing smaller conventions or just reporting on conventions from different aspects. And that's all I could think of right now.
No, go ahead.
I'd like to reiterate something that I heard Chris Dunn and Ty talk about, and that is reading the rules. I don't think he overstated how important it is to read the rules of the particular con that you're going to, because you mess up and get to follow those rules, it will fish hook you right up out of there. And next thing you know, you're not blacklisted, but you are starred as broke the rules last time. And it's going to be that much harder for you. And you don't want to make a, burgeoning career-ending error just because you didn't read. So pay attention to what's being told about how to conduct yourself.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from the experience of my side of things, yes, read the rules. And when you are picking up your badge, you acknowledge those rules and you obey those rules. We have had to kick out a major media organization, like Major Network, for doing an interview on the Walk of Fame at DragonCon, which is forbidden. Nobody is allowed to do that. And they've been blacklisted from the convention for forever. So, yeah, read the rules.
Yeah. And MomoCon, we've had very popular content creators and outlets that have violated not only the rules of the con, but also the venue, which is part of our rules. But for most conventions, is outlining any restrictions or things that the venues tell us that we need to stay within. And they've been what we like to call first gray listed. We warned you, we talked to you. If you do it again, you're done. And then we have the blacklist. So definitely read the rules. And then also don't think just because you don't see us directors that you can get away with it, because somebody on social media is going to send it to us and tell on you, because that's how we found out about all those that got gray and blacklisted for MomoCon. Is we got bombarded in social media. It's like, hey, check this person out. Look what they did.
We have eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
All during the convention. You would not believe how in tune I am, and I never leave my room.
Yeah, I've gotten random messages from both of y'all after a con. It was like, hey, we noticed you did this thing. And I was like, oh, y'all really can't see everything. But Ty and Chris, y'all said so much I want to get into. This is going to go into a second part next year. I want to get into the do's and don'ts of being a press outlet, because that is so important. Like con after con, year after year, I see new outlets. I see old outlets who should know better make the same mistakes. And then I see people who start out small and then grow really big because they follow the rules and do all the right things. So I do want to talk more about what are some of the do's and don'ts of being a press outlet. And one thing I want to start off with is a don't, because I see this all the time. If you're a press outlet, do not ask for autographs during the interviews or go up to their tables and ask for autographs because you did an interview with these celebrities. Like, please do not do that. They make money off of their signatures, their brand, their likelihood. That is why they're there, to make money. Do not do that. But this is an open for everybody.
Part of their agreement with the con, a lot of them have guarantees that they have to make so much at the booth, or the con has to pay that difference. So they're very conscious about that.
that, and when I found out about that, that blew my mind. But yes, but again, everybody, this is an open discussion. What are some of the do's and don'ts of being a press outlet that you want to bring up that you think are the most important?
Sorry, Dana said something that is really, really important, and I've seen some press outlets not be considerate of this. Guests at tables do have guarantees for certain conventions, and if you are at a con where lucky enough to be at a con where they allow you to do interviews at tables, be cognizant of the time that you spend at that table.
Yes.
Because the time is money, literally at a con, because the amount of time that you take up is on time that they are not spending getting the money from the guest. So be considerate of that. If you're going to be interviewing at a table, keep it to a minimum. You don't need to ask your laundry list of questions. And also, when you're formulating your questions for the interview, keep the questions short. They don't need to know your life story before you answer the question or ask the question.
Big facts.
It's cool if you're vibing and everything like that. However, just be aware of all those other people that are lining up behind your camera.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to throw out is when you're interviewing someone, whether it's in a one-on-one interview or a group interview, be aware of the things you should and should not ask.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
And Tillman and Dana probably know the one that I am referring to, where somebody from a different press outlet, I don't even know who the outlet was.
I have been dancing around this subject in my head all night. But
yeah, that's why I was like, I'm not going to mention who it was. I'm not going to mention the guest. And like I said, I don't even know the press outlet, but they asked a question that the guest clearly didn't want to talk about. And then they continued to press the issue.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. And you could see the frustration on the guest's face, and that made the rest of the interview time kind of the vibe of the whole room was just off at that point, because it was a situation that this person has no control over, but you just kept pressing the issue. And again, the expression on their face was like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So and that's where the prep work comes in. Once you know who you're going to be interviewing, do your research, find out what's going on. We had a guest that I'm a big fan of, that before the interview, I asked them if it was okay if I asked them about their podcast, because their podcast was about their parents, and both of their parents had recently passed away. And I made it a point to ask that before the interview so that there wouldn't be anything like that on camera. And they were fine with me asking. Do your prep work. Know what to and what not to ask.
And just around like the kind of questions that you ask. I'm going to make it hypothetical. This didn't happen this way, but it's indicative of the kind of thing that makes everybody go, really, bruh? Like, don't sit in front of a celebrity and ask them, like, who would win in a fight, Superman or Goku? Like, why?
Oh my God.
Why are you asking them that? Because one, nobody cares, and two, you wasted time, very precious time, to ask that asinine question. Please do not.
That's what I was saying earlier. You know, hopefully we're going to hear better questions than we would hear at a panel. Ultimately.
Yes, I want to piggyback off of that, Joy. Well, the whole thing about asking questions. I've seen people ask, I call it the fan questions, and Ranger Stop and Pop really honed this in with me and helped me understand the differences between what they hear at the tables from the attendees and the regular fans and what they expect to hear from us. Don't ask Power Rangers about Power Rangers if you're a press outlet. I learned that the hard way. Or if you do, make it in a way to where it's something they have never heard or thought of before. Another thing, if you're interviewing an actor or an actress, they are not that character that they portrayed on screen. You can't ask them what would this character do in this situation. That was just their job. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that disconnect that they were the character, but they're the actor. They were the job. They didn't write the character unless they did, but that's a different story. They just acted it. They just did their job. And again, like, I cannot preface this enough. Research will always be your friend. The more you research, the better.
Yes, and specifically research what they've been asked before.
Yes.
Look at other press outlets. Just look out on YouTube or whatever, and what is like the one question that they get asked over and over and over again.
Never ask that question.
Like honestly, please stop asking Power Rangers if they've watched the other seasons. Please stop asking them if they've watched the Super Sentai.
They have not. None of them have.
Guarantee. I mean, that's one of the things that is helpful, because like you can look all over YouTube for whatever actor is consistently at cons, and you might get a few that it's their first time being at a con, but ultimately though, just look and see what other people have asked, and then like, it's not a problem to ask that question again, but maybe try and find a different way to approach the question to get something new and different out of it.
Yeah, because Mark would know offhand, and Tillman was there too. 1 year, because I know for a particular guest, because they get asked this, and they've been in the industry for 30 plus years. They're constantly asked this one question. They have it as a forbidden question. And I had to announce to outlets, please do not ask the following question. And a lot of times that happens for like voice actors that's been in the industry for several years. They constantly get asked, how did you get into voice acting? Steve Bloom, who's been in it for 30 plus years. You can find 30 years worth of interviews on that. Don't ask that man that question again, because they're going to say, well, yes, I've been asked this before. And and as it was mentioned earlier, you can tell a very difference of their just the energy of them and their face, because as soon as they get asked one of those triggering questions, or those questions they're constantly asked, they go into that PC mode. It is not happy, it's not sad, it is just like, I'm getting this out the way.
Yes.
But when you ask them a unique question they've never been asked, or you actually done the research, like for my outlet, even for myself, I do that purpose, and I'll ask them like, oh yes, when I interviewed one of the Power Rangers, I was like, oh yes, before you became a Power Rangers, I saw you were actually in the minor leagues baseball. They were like, whoa. And when I see that, I'm like, yeah. But Google is your friend. That's all I gotta say.
I would say, do not ask them to do any voices or any character things. They literally got paid to do that.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Big facts on that one.
And they get asked in panels all the time about that too.
Yes.
I would say, for me personally, the one piece of advice I would give to anybody looking to do any interviews with anybody is to start watching the television or the YouTube show Hot Ones, because Sean Evans is the single best interviewer I have ever seen. He asks questions that it's like every single question he asks, the guest is just flabbergasted that he's asked that question. So if you can do that kind of research on your subject and come up with a question like he can, then you're golden. I mean, Sean Evans is literally, I think, one of the best interviewers there is in the business right now.
I want to add to that a little bit. My approach as an outlet, especially when I'm prepping questions, especially if it's like a big guest or any guest for that matter, is to be a journalist first and like a fan later. If you can be a fan, sure, but like be a journalist first. How would, if you were interviewing the president, not this one, but a president or someone more dignified or some other world leader, how would you want to interview them? What kind of questions do you want to interview them? Because I work in media and I see all the time of how big billionaires control the voice of the media outlets and things like that. And when I'm out at these cons, I want to be a journalist. I want to get down to the truth of a certain issue or a topic or something, as it relates to my audience, to people who are watching my videos. So again, research and professionalism is going to be your best friend.
I'll let Joy go first, and then I have some.
Go for it.
Say, you mentioned be a professional first and a fan later, and I would like to give my confession about being professional and then being a total fan. Not even 30 minutes later. And I will name names because it's imperative to the thing. So we got a chance at MomoCon to interview the one and only DMC.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a really
y'all
good
don't understand. I've been in love with that man since I was like 14 years old, right? And he is sitting right in front of me, and I'm being professional. And I looked into the background, and I knew that mental health was near and dear to his heart. And so everybody else is asking him about like Run's house and blah blah blah. And he's talking about it because he's a good guy. And so we started having a conversation about. I think his interview went on for like an hour and a half. We started talking about
yes, an hour and a half, and his manager was like, "Tell me if I need to make him shut up."
We're like, no, he can talk forever. And so I felt like that's probably one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. And when it was over, then, he was taking pictures because that was part of the deal that we could take pictures in the room during MomoCon. And as I got close to him, I didn't shoot my shot, but I shot my shot because I was like, I love you since I was 14 years old. I just want you to know that I think you're an amazing person. Like I just think you're an amazing person, and I think you're great, and I just love everything you do, and I wish the best for you and your family, blah, 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 blah. And he gave me a hug, and I was just like, do I suggest people do that? Absolutely not. Could I have gotten in trouble? Maybe, if I didn't read the room correctly, and I figured like I could get away with that. But I also was respectful, because if he had told me thank you from a distance, I'd have shook his hand and walked on my way. But he gave me a hug. I did not go in for it, and so I felt good. But yeah, that's probably the highlight of my life. Got to be honest.
You know what? I got a confession to make too. Because it is really hard to not have that fangirl come out of you while you're mid-interview. So this past Ranger Stop and Pop, I was working on a documentary that you'll see this February called The Black History of Power Rangers. Yes. It's going to be amazing. And that's why, like, when you said read the room, you really got to, like, experience is key, knowing, like, seeing the same celebrities in the same environment over and over again and understanding how they operate really helped me out. There were moments that I was fanning out. Like I'm trying to remember my outline, my questions, and I'm interviewing Paul and Jason, Bulk and Skull, and asking them about their experiences on set with the Black cast members and what representation meant to them. And they were so super interested in the subject and the whole documentary. I'm sitting there on camera trying to just conduct the interview, and I'm just geeking out. Like, this is Bulk and Skull. I want to cosplay as Bulk one day. And, like, they were the reasons why I watched Power Rangers. Like, they were the comedic reliefs, and I'm sitting there just trying to ask them questions and not geek out. But I geeked out. Like, I just geek out. But they were so cool about it, they geeked out with me. And it made for, like, great B-roll, not B-roll, but, like, a blooper reel or something like that. The same thing with I did the same thing like a couple of minutes later with Catherine Sullivan. I was interviewing her, and mid-sentence, I forgot everything I was sitting there trying to do because I'm like, she's the pink Power Ranger, she the crane, and I was like, oh my God, forgive me, I'm so sorry, I'm blanking out. I'm having a fanboy moment mid-interview, and she's like, go ahead, have it. And I had to like kind of wing it until I got back on track. I was like, okay, good. So reading the room works, especially if you have experience and you understand who you're interviewing. Now, that hasn't always worked out for me. I have had some really bad interviews. One, I'm not going to name the person, but it was at a small con, and they were roaring drunk. And I'm like, I don't even know how to, A, conduct the interview, but B, how to salvage it. I haven't posted the interview yet. I don't know if I'm going to, given who the person is, but I've had some completely read the situation wrong. There's even a part of that same interview where another voice actor, the voice actor of Shao Kahn, he walks by, and I'm like, "Hey, can you save me? Can you save me out of this interview since you know the guy very well?" And he was like, "Nah, I'm here with my kid." And I was like, "Oh, okay, this interview is going south real quick." So yeah, you gotta know how to read the room. You gotta understand the situations you're in. Learn the do's and don'ts. Read the rules. There's so much that goes into what we do that makes this like both fun and interesting and get complicated at the same time.
I also want to touch on journalistic integrity, which is what you just referred
Yes,
to.
yes.
When you said, I don't know if I'm going to post it. I haven't posted. I don't know if I will. Is it going to, would it be worth, and it's not, would it be worth the additional views going viral, et cetera, to damage someone's career over something like that? Like if they get caught by TMZ, well, you knew TMZ was out there. That's what they do. But if you're with, anybody on this screen, I would assume is more interested in the story and the life, et cetera. And if they are, caught, not being at their best, is that something that we really want to put out there just because, like, I would say, I don't even know who that person is, but I would say I would elect not to. Like, there's no reason to cause them damage for an extra 30 likes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I agree. That's why I've never done anything with the content. It's just there. I have a better interview, but that's for a different purpose that I'll use later. But the one that I have for my channel is just gonna sit there. Because I don't, you're right. I don't want to throw his name out there because he's kind of had a downward spiral in his career in the last couple of years. But also I'm not that type of content creator where I clout chase, where I clout chase. Chris, we're going to get into that in a second.
Yeah. Man, you hit a button there with clout chasing, man. Wow. I do want to take a moment, and Ty mentioned this earlier, and I think that this is really, really important, and it's surrounding gear. I'm along with other things that I geek out about. I mean, gear is one of them, and not just like being prepared with the type of gear that you're going to be using for the convention. I mean, but also making sure that that gear is in good condition, that your batteries are charged, that you have portable battery banks. If you're using a phone, do that. Have some like lens wipes to clean your camera. If you have like a rocket pod to blow out the dust from your lens, things like that, making sure that all of that is ready to go. You have, if you're going to be using like a mirrorless camera or DSLR or whatever, what lenses are you going to be using? Kind of getting in your mind what type of things are you going to be capturing? Are you, and then prepping for that, make sure your microphones are charged. People will forgive bad video, but they will not forgive bad audio.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
And so making sure that all of that is on point is I think a very big do in terms of prep for the convention, but also maintaining that equipment during the convention, making sure that everything is ready at a moment's notice to be able to capture whatever may be happening, because there could be something that just is the most amazing anecdote or B-roll content or whatever that could really amplify your content. And if you're prepped and ready to go, you'll be able to capture it.
Yeah, I also have some. I love that gear is a big thing. Like I said, lens wipes. If you wear glasses, as most people on this podcast do, shout out to paying mortgage on our eyeballs. So comfy shoes. I have 2 pairs of sneakers, and I know people are tired of seeing my beat up pink ones and my beat up black ones, but those are the most comfy sneakers I have, and I will wear them at every con until the souls start talking to me. Please get a nice pair of comfy shoes. You are walking up and down stairs, standing on escalators for long periods of time, waiting behind people who walk too slow, going standing in front of people who are walking way too fast. You need a pair of comfortable shoes that can get you around, especially when you're talking about these big events like I did MomoCon 2024, and that was already been. Now y'all opening up. Oh Lord Jesus. So please make sure you have a pair of comfortable shoes, business cards. I think it's an important thing for networking as well as just for people to find their footage if you're capturing them or to find your content later. I'm a forgetful person, so I have switched to digital business cards and QR codes, but I still swear by, I hate to say it, you should at least have 1 or 2 physical ones, even if it has a QR code on it, just so you can give out just in case. Sometimes technology fails, especially at cons. Your phone can die. It's best practice to charge everything. But like I said, I'm an unconventional person. So my phone dies midway through the day and I'm constantly on the wall just begging people, can I please have a better charge? So make sure that you have a physical business card. Be mindful of kids. I don't know. This is something that no one really talks about content, but I've seen with content creators and other press outlets, people just snap people's kids. And just because the convention badge does say technically when you are at the con, you consent to having your picture taken, I still think it is best practice to ask people for consent before posting their children. Even if that person doesn't look like a child, you should also ask people if they look kind of young. If you got to think, you should probably just double check with them and make sure that they're of age. My content is technically family friendly, but sometimes, I steer clear of posting children without their parents' consent. I just think
as a father, I thank you for that.
I just try to be mindful because there are weirdos out there on the internet, and I just don't want to be one of them.
And I'm going to speak on that. That signage at all convention is for convention photographers and videographers. You're given authorization, not press outlets. That is totally separate. And that's why we always encourage you to ask cosplayers, anybody, permission on capturing them, especially children.
Yeah, thank you. Because I don't know, I've just seen some stuff online. I just really want to encourage you. Please ask people about their babies, that is, their children. Take breaks. Like I said, I'm a notorious. I just kind of soak in the sunlight. I guess that'll feed me, but you should probably have something to put in your bag to eat and some water to drink. You can get really exhausted walking all day. Take things in stride. Conventions just kind of have like a lot of moving parts, and sometimes people will snap at you. I have been on the receiving end of a snap or two. It's no one's fault. Sometimes it is people's fault, but you should take it in stride. Never take that as a personal attack. And if it really is an issue, there are chains of command. I personally don't think you should go online and blast someone in a video, at least without emailing them first and letting them know that's coming. I think there's a level of professionalism that comes with at least reaching out to people and trying to resolve it behind closed doors or through email or text, whatever that case is. You are a press outlet. You're allowed to post whatever, but just as I'm not sure if it was Joy or Dana who had said it earlier. What do you gain from posting things online? By taking someone else down, what does that say about your integrity? I'm not saying it doesn't make you less integrity, of an integral person. I don't know what the word is, but you should probably try to reach out to people behind closed doors and see if you can get it resolved if there is an issue. I've just seen that happen as well. As a content creator, that's that side talking. The last 2 things: have a way to offload your content. Baby girl just lost all of her content from Anime NYC because she made a very rookie mistake of not being able to offload her content properly. So please. Oh, I'm so sad. I'm heartbroken. But have a way to offload your content, whether that be hard drives, whether that's just you uploading it to a cloud service. Have multiple ways to back up your content. So you have a hard drive, a cloud service, yada, 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 whatever that. Have a way to offload all that content because you don't want to lose anything or corrupt anything. And lastly is create a guide to work by. Like I had mentioned earlier, I have a checklist, but having just some simple things that a process of working. Everyone talked very deeply about interviews, but like I said, that's not necessarily the crux of the work that I do. So for me, my guide looks a little bit different, but have one to work by so that you know that even if you go blank and starfish when you get to a con, you at least know where to return back home to so you can get back to work. And that's all the stuff I could think of.
Some good
And Mark, I just want to say one additional thing on the convention staff perspective. Respect is a huge thing for our volunteers, because majority of the conventions that are out here are run by volunteers. They're not getting paid. There are very few conventions that are corporate run or company run, that they do pay the quote unquote volunteers, but most of them, like MomoCon, DragonCon, AWA, and Ranger Stop, all these are people volunteering their time and giving to the convention because they're passionate and they enjoy the convention. Because that same respect is also giving, because for those who did MomoCon this year, I had to send out an email to our outlets because I got a lot of feedback that were some outlets that were being very rude to the volunteers, expecting them to treat them on the same level as our guests. And you are a outlet. You got a free badge. That is it. There is no reason to treat any of our volunteer or staff like we owe you. Other part is also being respectful to the guests, because yes, the guests are there. They're being paid by the convention based on their contract, but they are also still people. Don't expect because you are an outlet that you are privileged to having to have the opportunity to interview them or be to engage them. They have the right to say no, and no is a complete answer. And be respectful, because one thing, on this perspective as an outlet, Joy and Furious will know, and Tillman has seen it too, and so has Mark, is when we do an interview with any of the big guests, because they took time to interview with us, I always give a token of appreciation to them, because one, that helps them remember our outlet. They have something that when they look at it, they're like, I remember that outlet. I love this item. And I make sure it's stuff that they could use. I call it, con survival kit. But it is something that is just saying, hey, you didn't have to do this interview with us, but because you did, and this took time away from your table that you could have made money, I want to give you something, just to say thank you for your time. And
you can see the appreciation on their faces too.
Mm-hmm.
Tillman had one guest that approached him about that. What you said, Tillman?
I said those bags were highly coveted this year. Specifically, remember a Muppets guest wanting theirs. And, I remember one of our guests' wives making off with his.
I do want to piggyback off of something that you said, Dana, in terms of being respectful, especially of like staff and volunteers and everything like that. If you're in an exhibitor hall where there's guests and vendors and things like that, when they call for only staff and volunteers to be in that room, finish up your interview and leave. Do not go seeking more interviews. That is highly disrespectful to the volunteers and staff. People want to wrap up and go home. They've had a long weekend. They love that. They love the people and everything like that, but they have a lot to do before they go out. And also, I mean, they want to get out in Atlanta traffic and get out of Atlanta traffic as soon as possible. And so, be respectful and kind and thoughtful in terms of that. When they call for only volunteers and staff, wrap it up, get out.
I want to say something on to that one, because I am guilty of doing that very thing at this past Ranger Stop and Pop. Yell at me in the comments all you want, but the small exception to why I did it was the staff already knew what I was doing. The volunteers already knew what the project was about, and the few, oh my god, my light went out. The few people that I did interview at the end, they wanted to be a part of the project, so they made sure that they stayed behind and allowed me time to have the interview, so I can get them on camera. So I will, like, again, shout out to the Power Rangers, like, they came through for me then. There's so much that we covered that I would love to get into, but we are almost out of time. But before we go,
one thing.
Just need to schedule part 2.
Yes, we will
Chris
schedule
had
part
one
2.
thing. Chris had one thing.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I just want to piggyback on the taking breaks, because you can easily go through a day and it's been 8 to 10 hours. You realize you haven't eaten or drank anything. And a lot of these cons have actual media areas where you can kind of take breaks. They may even sometimes have snacks. MomoCon is a good one for that, and drinks and things like
Spoils
that.
us.
Spoils us. DreamCon as well. And also, Ty mentioned, downloading footage. That's a place where you can also take out your laptop, also download footage. And I also recommend just hanging out in those areas just to be able to connect with other media members as well. Especially if you're new, you can learn a lot of different things from people that's been doing it for a long time.
Agreed. So much agreed. Before we go, I do always end my talking points with this one talking part. And thank you, George, for bringing this to me, because I love it. Adult money. But we're gonna talk about this like in a lightning round sense and make it really quick. But adult money, the first thing I want to ask or bring to the table is, how can we make money from doing press? And there are two parts to it. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you can't from the con aspect, but on the other hand, as a content creator, you can from your brand. But floor is open. How can we make money from doing what we do as press outlets?
First, make sure charging anything is okay with the convention. So like DragonCon, that is a no-no. MomoCon, charging for photos or anything, that is a no-no. So make sure you follow those rules, because if you get caught, you are blacklisted. As far as that, inquire about sponsorships. One of the things I see with a lot of outlets, they try to do these quick, fast money things. Find someone who's going to really invest in your brand, and it believes in your brand, that can give you the funding to make your brand do the things that you want to do.
I'd also say if you have a really good brand recognition, and I'm thinking about some of the content creators that I know. For example, I merch, right? T-shirts with your slogan, logo, likeness, etc. on it, that you can sell through Etsy, or have your own website shop, etc. Mugs, pins, but whatever it might be. And yeah, I'm gonna stop there. For example, I bought a couple things off our own website from Moana Nui.
Subscriptions. If you have a Patreon or a Ko-fi, or if your website has a subscription base built into it, that might be an option. If you ask your family, I don't know why people are scared to ask their family but if your loved ones really support what you do and they find it valuable, ask them to give you $1, because that's what's valuable. Another thing that I have seen as well is, oh my gosh, if you can, try to get, no one likes being a content creator, but try to get monetized on an app. Sometimes that works. I will tell you, Instagram is practically impossible, so I won't tell you that. But I know TikTok, after 10K, you are monetized. On YouTube, YouTube has a pretty low threshold now to get monetized. So maybe consider chopping up some of that content you get and putting up onto YouTube as well. It's a little dicey. I'm just letting you know, social media pays out real small, but it's a way to get some money.
I love these pennies I'm getting from my social media platforms.
Like I said, it's real small. I want to set the expectation. I think the most holistic way as well is something that I'm doing with Off Black magazine is, if you are interested in I would say, I don't want to say it's illegitimate, not that you're a completely digital site, but consider doing some physical releases and maybe doing a Kickstarter or selling those physical releases of your articles. That could be a way for you to memento some of your older content, but also give something people to remember by all the cool stuff that you've done. So those are some of my ideas.
I agree. The social media aspect, yes, if you can get your YouTube, your Instagram, TikTok, Facebook monetized, go for it. But again, the margins of payouts is pennies. So please understand that it's a lot of hard work that goes into like creating content and covering cons as press. With that said, I do want to bring up something that Dana said. yes, as press outlets, the conventions do offer us a free pass, usually a pass to cover the extent of their con, to cover their con for X, Y, and Z reasons. But that is not a free pass to the con. And what I mean by that is we still put in a lot of time, effort, energy, and work, professionalism to create the content, to get the interviews, come up with questions, doing research. There's a lot of time, effort, and energy. Oh, the editing, the months of editing you do after any con, or years, depending on how you operate. So much goes into that free press pass. So yes, just because we received a free entry to the con doesn't mean we're not working for it. Because I'm still coming out of pocket for hotels and food and accommodations, travels. All the con did was just save me $100, maybe $200, if you want to look at it like that. But yes, if you can get your platforms not monetized, do that. The Kickstarter thing is a really good idea. Having merch is a really good idea. Not only merch for your website, but like merch you can bring to a con with you. A place like MomoCon, you might be able to get a booth to be your brand at MomoCon and be able to sell stickers and merch and other things like that. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. Anybody else has anything to add on how to make money in doing press?
I'm gonna flip the coin on here because I don't have an answer to that question. I never made a dime when I was doing press. It was all out of my pocket. But what I would like everybody to keep in mind when they come to any of these conventions, especially Momo and DragonCon and AWA, is that the people that you're interacting with are not getting paid to be there. They are there on their own free will. They're volunteering their time to help you. So please respect that and respect them, because they're trying to make your convention better at their own cost oftentimes. So I don't get paid for what I do. I have to pay for a hotel room. I have to pay for my food just like everybody else. So yeah, that's my only thing. Like I said, I don't have any advice on making money because I never figured it out myself.
Gotcha. There is a question that I saw in the live chat that I do want to get to, and it was a question of, do they charge for interviews? And I'm assuming that was on the perspective of you as an outlet going to a celebrity and then they charging you for an interview. That has happened. That's happened to me before, or they ask you to buy their book or something. And if that happens, deal with that accordingly. But for the most part, when you're doing the interviews at a con on the capacity of your press outlet, it is generally understood that you are allowed to get the interview if they approve you to interview them. Simple put it that. But that also goes.
I'll affirm that by just saying, I know the situation you're talking about because you and I talked about it. But it is, if somebody has agreed to do an interview with a reporter, they've agreed to do the interview. There's no subtext to that. There's no addendum. That's on them, and they can get in trouble for doing that. So.
I do know what you're talking about, but that's not quite the one I was referring to. I had another issue at a different con where one of the guests just flat out said, unless you are the guy who does video for this con, you have to pay $200 to $300 for an interview. And I was like, okay, cool. That's good to know. That's all I needed to know. But how that con operated was you have to just go up and ask. And if they said yes, then yeah, that's cool. If they said no, then you just have to move on. Oh, that leads me to a secret tip. Before we go, last tip. Something I learned just from doing cons, especially cons like Ranger Stop and Pop, where you have to go and ask for permission for interviews. Ask the handler for interviews. Grease the palm of the handler. Give them like a gift card, or make good with the handler, not the celebrity. The celebrity will always tell you yes or no. The handler is the one who controls if you get the interview or not.
And sometimes it may not be the handler. A lot of times you have the handler is typically through the con or volunteer, but a lot of times they have their own manager or someone from their actual team that's the person you have to go through, especially if they're tied to Disney properties or any big properties like that. You have to go through them because of NDAs and all kind of other stipulations. Because all the guests, they are more than happy to talk to any outlet, because a lot of them are very, very happy to talk to an outlet, and you will see, their manager about to lose their mind when they find out. So that is something, as directors, we have to check with their management team, and that's why we always have to tell outlets. It's not because we're being mean that we tell them, hey, do not ask anybody on the Walk of Fame or any of the actors or voice actors for interviews. Whoever gets approved is who's approved, and it's because of all the behind the scenes stuff that's going on. Like Tillman mentioned earlier, like comic book artists, writers, anybody on the artist alley, you're free to go up to them and ask. But those big name guests that is at Walk of Fame area, if we tell you no, don't do it, because there have been outlets to do that before, even though they've been told no. And it always gets back to us when we find out, because their management team find out and they were like, well, the guest said it was fine. No.
Right. 100% right about that. But before we go, I would like everyone to just reintroduce yourself to everybody and tell everybody where they can find you, and answer this last question. What has been your favorite moment or favorite interaction as a press outlet or director of media relations? Let's start with you, Dana.
Let's see. I'm Dana. You can find me on most social media outlets under Danique Events, Danique Cosplay, of course, Moana Nui Podcast. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to us. Hit that notification button to know when we go live. The Bop, which I'm the assistant and line producer on that show with the Yellow Power Ranger, Karen Ashley. So you can find me on most social media platforms for all of those outlets. And my favorite moment as press, I will say, would been at DragonCon. Is we had an interview. And I had scheduled, because we didn't get a chance to take a photo with this particular guest, photo op, and had my team to come and do a photo op with me. And as soon as we walked in, the guest was like, hey, we were like, ah, and he hugged all of us, and he was dapping Furious and James. And then we did our group photo. And of course, Joy, as soon as she got the digital confirmation, she posted that bad boy.
I crouched y'all out too.
You did?
I'm gonna say
it was such a good moment, because this person interviewed with us that morning, and the photo op was a good 4 to 5 hours later. And as soon as he saw us, he recognized us. It was like, hey, like it was a family reunion. And that was an awesome experience, that that guest recognizing us as an outlet and welcoming us like that when we came in for the photo op.
I'm gonna say I've never been more happy / jealous in my life. However you finagled that, I need to know how that happened, because I need that. But that's just from my perspective. Mr. Dunn, what about you?
Mute.
Thank you for reminding me that I was muted. I'm Chris Dunn. I am at Dunn Ryte on Instagram, TikTok, and also I have a YouTube channel called Geek Done Right. Honestly, like one of my favorite interactions had to have been Peter Sidarso from. He was the Blue Ranger from Power Rangers Ninja Steel. I had an interaction with him in an elevator, and then like the whole rest of the con, he was acting like he was my best friend. He was like my personal cheerleader. Like I'd be waiting at the elevators, he'd be going down an escalator, he'd be like, Chris, what's up, man? And it's like walking backwards up the escalator just to say hi to me. And then like I'll be in the exhibitor hall, and then all of a sudden I feel these hands on my shoulders like, Chris, what's up, man? Oh, you're the man. Oh, you're the best. Hey, come by my booth later. We'll talk, man. Like the whole rest of the con, it was just amazing. Comes up to me at one of the dances, and he's like, how you doing, man? You having a good time? Oh, and man, this is the best con ever, and I just love that you're here, man. It just was one of the most energizing, just awesome interactions I have ever had. I'm doing anything at any con ever. So I loved it.
Perfect. Miss Joy.
So Dana already took one of mine because I have a nephew now. He's my nephew. But I got to say that interview with DMC, just listening to him talk and hearing how much he's been through, because following him, knowing him, being a fan for 40 years, I would think that I knew everything, and then hearing stuff that I hadn't heard before, and it was great. And like I said, I got my hug and an autographed bag of cookies that he gave me. I still have the bag. I ate the cookies, but I also want to say, just because I know how people are in the internet, and earlier you said grease the palm of the handler, and I know you were joking, and I know what you really meant is give the handler a reason to remember you and think fondly of you the next time. We are not encouraging people to offer money to handlers or anything like that. He was just kind of making a joke, and I just want to make sure it's on record. We were joking around, so can't nobody come at you later for that, because I got your back. But you You can find me on YouTube and TikTok as A Moment of Joy. Now, if you look at me on TikTok, it's probably gonna be some K-pop nonsense. But I do also do like inspirational talks and everything on YouTube as A Moment of Joy, and Joyride08 on Instagram and Threads, which is where I hang out. And my feed is a combination of all sorts of craziness, but I'm a lot of fun. So you want to connect with me? Feel free. Joyride08.
Perfect. Ty.
I'll be brief because I'm a yapper. Recently, I did a Decora meet and greet. It's a very small event that happened in Orlando. I'm based out of Florida, by the way. And a really big person within the Decora community, Cybergirl, came down. I got an opportunity to chat with her. I also just got a chance to see this fashion subculture in my city I'd never seen before, and there were so many people that came out. It was exciting and exhilarating, and everyone loved my article, which is a bonus because everyone thought I was cool because I'm a great writer or whatever. You can find me on all socials. That's let me do a formal introduction. Hi, I'm Ty. I go by Blaque N Culture online. I talk about comics, manga, animation, and fandom all over the internet because I am your nerd otaku culture expert. You can find me at BLAQUE, the letter N, KULTURE, on all social media platforms except for Twitter because I hate that platform. And for my press brand, you can find me at BNK on tour. Especially go check out our website. That is where all of our articles and all of our jazz is there. We hope to see you around.
Okay. Mr. Shinobi, go ahead.
All right, I am Chris Carthern. You can find me at Cosplays by Shinobi on IG and TikTok. You can also find me at Shots by Shinobi and shotsbyshinobi.com. I would say, from Ty mentioned small cons, go to small cons. I've had so many great experiences going to small cons, and this one particular was Liberty Con. I think it was actually the first time they had this con, and I was there randomly. I wasn't even doing press, and I end up meeting the organizer, and whoever was supposed to interview the guest, the voice actors, just left. I don't know where he went. He's gone. And because I had this conversation with him, he said, "Oh, have you done like live interviews on stage?" It was like, "Sure." When is it? He's like, "Right now, they're on stage." I'm like, "Okay." Well, first he asked me, "Hey, are you familiar with Naruto?" I was like, heck yeah, I'm familiar with it. And so I literally ran on the stage and conducted an interview with a couple Naruto voice actors. And it went well. And 5 minutes later, he ran back to me again, said, "Hey, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm just walking around the convention." So that same person is still not here. can you do another interview? And now I'm interviewing voice actors from My Hero Academia on stage. It was such a, and they were so appreciative because they're used to people interviewing them and they literally didn't know what to talk about or what on stage. So they were very appreciative, and yeah, it was just probably my favorite experience.
Perfect. Furious, go ahead.
For me, there are two that are tied for number one. One was years ago when I got to meet and take a picture with Nichelle Nichols at DragonCon. That was an amazing moment. The other one is getting to interview one of my all-time favorite stand-up comics at DragonCon this year. It was amazing. Her name is Leanne Lord. I'm sorry, I didn't say her name. Leanne Lord. It was just amazing. I've been a big fan of hers. I don't even know for how many years, and it was just amazing getting to meet and interview her.
Perfect.
Oh, and I'm sorry. And you can find me at Mr. ATL for Life, MRATL, the number 4, and Life on all the social media platforms.
All right. And media director or media director of media relations of DragonCon, Tillman. Go ahead.
Interview manager. Let's see.
He's trying to promote you, Tillman.
If you can find me, I'm doing something wrong. However, I am at DragonCon every year. Usually, you cannot find me at DragonCon unless you're a part of the media. Other than that, let's see. I have two things that stick out, and I'm going to sell them both because they're both from two different sides of the coin. The first is what I think officially got me my position right now, and that's an interview it was a press conference that Terry Gilliam did at DragonCon, and Terry Gilliam is one of the members of Monty Python, and famous movie director. He's made amazing movies. And it was a press conference, and CNN was in this press conference, and he was there to promote a movie called Zero Theorem. And out of the 10 or 15 people that were in that press conference, I was the only person that asked him any questions about Zero Theorem. And because I was the only one that had actually done the time and researched it and watched the movie. And I asked him a very specific technical question about something I had noticed. And his response was literally, he clapped his hands, pointed at me, and said, "This is the question I've been waiting this entire tour for." Not the convention, but the entire tour for. And he spent the next 10 minutes just talking about this thing. And at the end of the press conference, I was one of the few people that he wanted a photo with. And that moment has been etched in my brain ever since. It's one of my favorite photos. And so this year is my second favorite moment, and it involves John Boyega from Star Wars and Attack the Block. And I'm not going to go into too many details, but he did something for me personally that it made me feel good about what I do. And it made me feel better about some things that had happened. So I felt appreciated about that. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know what it is. We'll deal with that later.
We'll talk about it offline.
Yeah, gotcha. For me, I have a lot of favorite moments, but the more recent one was getting to interview Peter Macon at DragonCon. The reason why for me that
and I'm going to interject. That was an amazing interview, and I told you that. It was a great interview. I think it was one of the best ones I heard the whole weekend.
Thank you. You don't know how nervous I was 5 seconds before he walked in the room, and then like deciding at the very last second, should I be on camera with him? Because I thought other people was gonna show up. Then I realized it's just me. But yeah, interviewing Peter Macon, researching him was fun. Being a fan of him because he plays Birds on the Orville. That was fun. And then like once I put the phone away and like got over the nervousness and like I can just asked the questions that I prepared. Asking him about queer representation with him playing Boris from the Orville, and just going down that whole rabbit hole. I had a whole hour prepared, and then Tillman walked up and gave me the signal, "You got 1 minute." I was like, no, this is the worst possible timing for this, but that interview was amazing. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. Matter of fact, all these interviews of all these guests that we have talked about are available on all of our social media platforms and DragonCon TV. So please feel free to check them out. Run DMC was amazing. I can hear him talk for days. Just talk. I don't even want to ask him questions. He can just talk. Tell me about his life. But before we go, I would like to give a special shout out to Blerdography's newest channel member, Frost NYC. Thank you. Just joined a couple of days ago, but thank you for becoming a channel member. I really appreciate it. And if you are watching this video and you would like to become a channel member, you can do so by hitting the join button somewhere down here between Furious and Tillman. There's a button called join. You can hit that and you can spend your adult money to help me go to my next con, which will be AWA in December. Blerdkast Live. We'll be back at the end of November because, you know, I like to enjoy the holidays and people got to go out of town. So we'll be back November 24th with our Cyber Monday special. And then after that, December 1st, we're doing something special with the Supreme Attorney. I'm going to leave that for later. But this has been Blerdkast, and I'll see y'all when I see you.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Never cover all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will. So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Never cover all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we